And on that note, let's bring in Florida's Governor, Ron DeSantis. Good morning to you, Governor.
Good morning.
Good morning. Did you watch the interview with Caitlin? What do you think of that response, that she or her praising your state and what you've done there for the people?
Well, look, I mean, I appreciate it. I mean, obviously, there's quite a contrast in Florida. You know, we've been open. Our schools have been open for in-person instruction. Our unemployment rate is significantly less than the national average and much less than lockdown states like California and New York. And yet we've done that all with having a senior mortality rate for COVID that's less than 40 other states because we focused on protecting our elderly population rather than locking everybody down. And so Florida's doing very well right now. Ainsley, we never touched one penny from our rainy day fund throughout COVID.
Wow.
And now we've just done the budget and we're doubling our rainy day fund. We have the strongest revenues that anyone's ever seen in the state. So the economy's performing well. People are happy. And as you know, there are people moving here because they want a whiff of freedom.
Governor, that I guess you have the backing. I'm able to read between the lines. You have the backing of your supporters there. But in the big picture, too, you were actually got less federal money than all the other states because you didn't lock down. They did it off unemployment. They rewarded bad behavior.
No, for sure. So they did aid the states. They've always done that on a population basis. On this time, with the Biden stimulus, they took states like Florida that had lower unemployment, took money from Florida and gave it to the lockdown states with high unemployment like California and New York. So those states got a windfall, and we ended up getting the short end of the stick.
Yeah, but you kind of made up for it because everyone left those lockdown states to come to Florida.
Yeah.
Many of them stayed.
No, for sure, and we're happy with what we're doing. But the fact is, they are rewarding bad policy. They rewarded the states who locked down far beyond when it would have been reasonable to do, in particular, like the fall and the winter, when a lot of those lockdown states had very poor COVID performances and economic performances. So that's just some of the perverse incentives we see coming out of Washington on seems like a daily basis now.
Well, and you know, one of the most famous that we've been talking about is the fact that because there are some people who are having trouble finding work during the COVID pandemic, even though we're on the backside of it, it does appear. But the government has extended the unemployment supplement to people. And so there are a lot of people who they're doing the math problem. They're saying, you know what, I can actually make more money if I sit on my curvy couch at home than if I go to work. Meanwhile, so that's across the country. But you, yesterday, were at Satellite Beach, where you were giving people bonuses for working during the pandemic, particularly the people who wear uniforms.
Yeah, we did bonuses for all of our sworn law enforcement, firefighters, EMTs. You know, there's people around the country that are trying to defund police. We're funding police and then some with $1,000 bonuses for all the folks who wore the uniform and who protected us during this very difficult year. And obviously, COVID was a big challenge. They don't have the luxury of doing police work on Zoom. You have to show up. You got to be on the streets. But it's also the way the police were treated throughout our country. They've never been treated more poorly in some parts of our country. And I said from the very beginning, that is not going to stand in Florida. We're back in the blue. We're going to back the law enforcement. And this is a token of our appreciation for the great work they've done.
Yeah, I know police officers here in New York who have put in their retirement papers because they want to move to Florida and find a law enforcement job there.
You support them.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, no, look, we welcome folks who have taken the vocation to protect us, and this will be a welcoming environment for anybody who wears the uniform, who feels they're not appreciated in some of these deep blue jurisdictions. You come to Florida, we got your back.
So after the pandemic, Governor, a lot of people loosened up the rules because a lot of people didn't want to come out of the house. There were drop boxes, no excuse, mail-in balloting, and things to that nature. After years of struggling on Election Day and maybe extending it too long, most famously in 2000, you guys pretty much pulled it off flawlessly last time around, and you were able to get the results in. Now it's time for people to rein in and have a non-pandemic election. In over 30 states, they've made reforms. You're doing the same thing. What's going to be different about Florida's election in 2022? What are you about to sign?
So right now, I have what we think is the strongest election integrity measures in the country. I'm actually going to sign it right here. It's going to take effect. So
There you go.
bill is signed.
Looks
and
official.
here's what it does. If you look, here's what it does. Now, we've always
came with
had voter ID.
graphics.
We're making sure we're enforcing voter ID. Look, you have to show a picture ID to do all these other things in society, clearly voting. We're also banning ballot harvesting. We're not going to let political operatives go and get satchels of votes and dump them in some drop box. We're also prohibiting mass mailing of balloting. We've had absentee voting in Florida for a long time. You request a ballot, you get it, and then you can mail it in. But to just indiscriminately send them out is not a recipe for success. We're increasing transparency even better. In Florida, we track the votes coming in real time. Not the results, but we know who's voting, what your registration is, and we follow the turnout. So then when the election's over, we know the universe of votes that have been cast, and it makes it so that someone can't dump 100,000 votes 2 or 3 days later. And then finally, we're prohibiting private money from basically running the elections, like these Zucker bucks that they were doing in all these different parts of the country.
What about?
So this keeps us ahead of the curve. We put a lot of effort into last election, and we wanted to make sure we did it well. We had 11 million votes counted by midnight, 99%. We think this will make it even better as we go forward, and so we're proud of the strides that we've made. We're not resting on our laurels, and me signing this bill here says, Florida, your vote counts. Your vote is going to be cast with integrity and transparency, and this is a great place for
Real
democracy.
quick question, Governor. Real quick question: will you allow drop boxes, and have you cut back hours for voting?
So the drop boxes were, look, I'm not a fan of drop boxes at all, to be honest with you, but the legislature wanted to keep them, but they need to be monitored. You can't just leave these boxes out where there's no supervision, where they're in all hours of the night. So the drop boxes will be available only when they're monitored and during regular voting hours. And I think that's the appropriate way to do it.
All right, joining us from Palm Beach County, Governor Ron DeSantis. Sir, thank you very much for joining us live with
Thank
a
you,
very boisterous crowd. Happy to be up and on TV with you. Thank you, sir.
A lot of great folks down here in Palm Beach County. Thanks, guys.
All right.